There comes a moment in a person's life when they don't click on a message like this out of curiosity. They arrive because something has gone too far. The boundary has been crossed. The limit of end, luring silent attacks. The limit of watching injustice repeat itself. The limit of sensing that unseen forces are interfering, blocking doors, draining strength, disturbing peace, sabotaging decisions. And when that limit is reached, God does not respond with explanations. He responds with movement. Psalm 35 and Psalm 94 are not soft prayers. They are not passive words whispered into the air. They are declarations of active justice. They reveal God rising as judge, defender, and warrior. These psalms do not merely request comfort, they demand intervention. They call heaven into the case. They confront what was raised against you without cause and command it to collapse. If you are hearing this right now, understand something with spiritual precision. This is not random content. This is a divine interruption, a turning point. Something begins today, something ends today. Something that has been operating quietly against you is starting to weaken. Maybe you cannot fully explain it, but you have felt it. A strange pressure, an unusual heaviness, situations stalling without logic, conversations shifting unfairly, words spoken behind your back, doors closing in silence, circumstances manipulated in ways you couldn't prove, but you sensed. This is not paranoia, it is awakened discernment. And when discernment awakens, hidden attacks lose their advantage. You did not arrive here accidentally. Many have heard messages like this and felt nothing. Others grew uncomfortable and left. But you stayed. That is not coincidence. Your spirit recognized urgency. Something must be confronted now, not later, not when convenient, not when there is time, but now. Perhaps you have said recently, "It feels like something is working against me. I do what is right, yet resistance follows me. Others advance by harming me. I defend myself, but nothing changes." Those thoughts are not weakness. They are indicators that the conflict is not purely natural. Psalm 35 opens with a bold appeal. "Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me." This is not vengeance. It is alignment with divine justice. It is the recognition that there are battles you were never meant to carry alone. Before we go any further, take your position in faith. Write in the comments right now, "The Lord fights for me." This is not symbolic, it is agreement with heaven. And if you are ready for God to confront what has been confronting you, subscribe now to Prophecy of the Psalm. Turn on notifications and remain connected, because what you are stepping into is not a single prayer. It is a season of divine justice. Psalm 94, he declares something even stronger. God is the God of vengeance, not of vengeance. Impulsive and uncontrolled human nature, but rather just revenge, that restores balance, exposes injustice, and breaks the cycle of evil. Now, I need you to understand something important from the beginning. God is not late when he seems to be in silence. Deeper signs that witchcraft, curses, or unjust attacks are trying to work against you. See if you recognize any of them. These signs are not meant to generate fear, but to generate clarity. You feel tired even after resting. You feel resistance every time you try to move forward. You feel like you're constantly justifying yourself. You notice loaded looks, comments, or attitudes. You feel emotionally weighed down after talking to certain people. These signs don't mean defeat. They mean interference, and the identified interference begins to be removed. Now listen to this very carefully. Not every enemy appears with a serious face. Many approach with a smile, excessive curiosity, exaggerated interest, too many questions. And Psalm 35 and the Psalm 94 deals exactly with that, with those who act in the shadows, with those who they secretly set traps, with those who rejoice in the downfall of others. But there is a spiritual truth that everything changes. No trap remains standing when God enters the picture. Now we're entering a crucial point in our script. What's happening in the spiritual world right now as you listen to these words? At this very moment, as you remain attentive, things begin to change in the invisible world. The words thrown against you, they begin to lose weight. Hidden intentions begin to be exposed. No, not necessarily so that you see everything, but to lose the right to operate. The spiritual world responds to consciousness. When you understand that you are not crazy, that it is not exaggeration, which is not weakness, the attack loses the element of surprise, and an attack without surprise becomes, it weakens. Perhaps you're feeling a mixture of seriousness and relief. This happens because this isn't a word of emotion, it's a word of spiritual governance. Now I need to align something very important. God does not break curses while the person insists on carrying the blame. To defend oneself. Defending oneself is not a sin. Crying out for justice is not a lack of love. It is recognize limits. Agree with me now, even if only silently. I do not accept injustice as my fate. I do not carry attacks that do not belong to me. I trust that God fights for me. These statements are fundamental because what you don't accept cannot be sustained. Now let's delve even deeper by entering into the deepest signal block as defined in our base script, a strong attack signal. Spiritual injustice occurs when you begin to doubt yourself for no clear reason. When you ask yourself repeatedly, is the problem me? This doesn't originate with you. It's confusion induced, and today it begins to fall. Another sign is when good things try to happen, but something it interferes at the last moment. It's not bad luck, it's spiritual resilience. Another sign is when you sense that someone is profiting from your hardship. This is serious. And Psalm 94, it's exactly about that, about those who prosper by exploiting, those who rejoice in oppression, those who they act believing that God doesn't see, but He does see. And when He decides to act, the scenario changes rapidly. Now listen to this very clearly, that enemies fall today does not mean physical violence. It means a fall in influence, power, and access. It means that whatever was working against you loses its support. It means hidden strategies collapse. It means evil loses its advantage. And that starts today. Now let's get into something very important, the preparation of the Spirit for intervention. Because God does not act where there is despair, He acts where there is trust. Maybe you're tired of fighting. Maybe you want to stop explaining, stop defending yourself, of trying to prove something. That's a clear sign that God is about to take control. I agree with you. I surrender to God what I cannot resolve. I rest while He works. These words are not passivity, they are strategic commitment. Now observe something. If you've made it this far, something has already started to move. Perhaps not yet outwardly, but internally, yes. And that's important because every external change, it begins with an internal repositioning. In the next part, we'll delve even deeper. We'll go into the advanced spiritual confirmation block. We'll talk about what happens when God begins to break. Curses, how the signs intensify, how the resistance tries to appear. Before we fall, we'll begin the first, stronger guided statements. But before we close this section, if you can, perform one last act of alignment. Write in the comments. Are Psalms 35 and 94 in my favor, or is it simply God? Fight for me. You are not alone in this battle. You are not behind. And what was raised against you will not remain standing. Remain. What comes next goes deeper, confronts and prepares for the moment when the rupture begins to manifest itself clearly. Now we move on to part 2, and here the spiritual atmosphere is already more sensitive. If in part 1 there was preparation, in this part the confrontation begins to take shape, and the signs they become clearer to those who are paying attention. It is precisely at this point that many people begin to perceive internal changes, external resistance, and more evident spiritual confirmations. I need you to remain attentive, not fearful, but discerning. When God begins to act to break witchcraft, curses, and injustices, the first place where that happens is in the world around us. It manifests not outside, but inside. Before falling into the visible world, something it needs to fall into the invisible world. And that's what's happening now. Let's revisit the topic of spiritual confirmation, but at a deeper level. If this word is for you, you have probably experienced at least one of these situations recently. You felt you had to defend yourself against things you didn't do. You perceived indirect attacks, malicious rivers, or attempts to discredit you. Did you feel that someone wanted? Did you silently witness your downfall? Or did you notice that your presence was more uncomfortable than it should be? This doesn't happen because it's a coincidence. Only those who carry something that threatens the other's equilibrium are attacked. Empty people don't cause discomfort. People without purpose don't generate opposition. An attack is always a signal that there is value involved. Psalm 35 makes this very clear when it speaks of those who rise up without cause. And Psalm 94 goes even deeper, revealing that God sees those who rise up without cause. Thoughts, hidden plans, and strategies made in the dark. Now listen carefully. Not everything that seems like a delay is actually waiting. Sometimes it is. Accumulation of evidence. God does not act impulsively. He acts with precision. And when he gets up, there's no need for repetition. A single intervention changes everything. Perhaps in recent days you have felt a strange mixture of tiredness and anticipation, as if something was about to happen but had not yet manifested itself. That is one of the clearest signs that the spiritual environment is in transition. Now we enter the block of deeper signals, those that indicate that the breakout is already underway. March. An important sign is when you start to see certain people more clearly, not with anger, but with clarity. You perceive intentions, you perceive patterns, you perceive inconsistencies. It's not judgment, it's discernment activated. Another sign. It's when past situations try to repeat themselves, but they no longer affect you in the same way. The scenario can. They may be similar, but the reaction is different. Where there was once despair, there is now resolve. Where before there was confusion, now there is inner silence. That shows that the root is being touched. Another strong sign is when you feel like getting away from heavy environments, negative conversations, or people who always bring burdens. That's not isolation, it's protection kicking in. Now I need you to understand something fundamental. When God begins to break curses, the enemy tries to generate distraction, haste, or discouragement, not because he has power, but because he knows that their time was running out. Maybe they felt like stopping the video. Maybe a thought said, "This is too long." Perhaps unease. That happens because this part directly confronts invisible structures, yet they remain. Whoever comes here is not only listening, they are participating of a real spiritual process. Now let's get into the block of what's happening in the spiritual world now, even more clearly. At this moment, as you listen carefully, you agree invisible agreements are being undone. Agreements made with spoken words, through malevolent glances, malicious intentions, spiritual work, or simply envy silent. All of that only remains as long as there is permission or ignorance. When consciousness arrives, permission falls away, and something very important happens here. The burden begins to fall back on the one who tried to carry what was not his responsibility. This is not human vengeance, it is spiritual justice. It is the biblical principle that each one he reaps what he sows. Psalm 94 makes this explicit by declaring that God does to let the wicked's own wickedness fall upon them. That is, evil does not need to be pushed. It falls only when it loses its support. Perhaps you're wondering, but I don't wish harm on anyone. And that's okay. You don't need to. God doesn't need your anger to act. He needs your trust. Agree with me, now with serenity. I carry no hatred. I trust in God's justice. Withdrawal from human conflict. These statements are extremely powerful because they take you out of wrong battlefield and they place you under God's rule. Now we enter in an essential block of this part 2. Guided statements from the listener, but still at a level intermediate. Repeat after me if you can, calmly and consciously. I revoke all spiritual permission given to envy. I revoke all spiritual permission given to the curse. I withdraw all spiritual permission given to witchcraft. Now for something deeper, I do not tolerate attacks, invisible. I do not carry what does not come from God. These words are not symbolic. In the spiritual world, the permission is key, and when you withdraw it, access is closed. Now let's talk about something few people realize. Many curses persist, not by force, spiritual, but due to emotional exhaustion. When a person lives tired, confused, overwhelmed, she becomes vulnerable. But when the rest begins spiritually, vulnerability decreases. Perhaps you will begin to feel less urgency, less need to prove something, less desire to explain everything. That's a sign that the pressure is being relieved. Let's delve even deeper into the signs. Another clear sign of an impending breakup is when you start remembering old promises you had forgotten. Dreams that ideas that seemed impossible were shelved. That happens because when the attack subsides, the horizon reappears. Another sign is when you feel like praying more simply, not asking for things. Not so much, but resting more. That shows spiritual maturity. Now I want you to understand something important. God doesn't break curses only to leave you vulnerable afterward. He breaks and it establishes protection. But that protection requires that you don't return to environments, patterns, and thoughts that weaken you. That's why, in this part, God begins to teach you practical discernment. Not everything is for you. Not everything the conversation deserves your energy. Not every explanation is necessary. Now let me bring in a model testimony just to confirm spiritual principles. There was a person who always felt their life was the target of envy. Projects stalled, the relationships deteriorated, opportunities were lost. When he began to pray the Psalm 35 and Psalm 94 with understanding, something changed first within her. He stopped exposing himself too much. He stopped explaining plans. He stopped to justify themselves. In a few weeks, the attack stopped, not because the people didn't change, but because access was closed. That is spiritual wisdom. Now, before we move on to part 3, I need to prepare you for something important. In part 3, we will go into the direct confrontation. The moment the statements become firmer, the rupture intensifies and the signs begin to manifest more clearly in the visible world. It is the part where many feel real relief, practical changes, and unexpected answers. But before that, do one simple thing now. If you can, write in the comments, I revoke all permissions. Improper spirituality. Or simply, God does me justice. This is not a ritual, it's positioning. You're not in the middle of a confusion, you're in the middle of a process of restoration and justice. It remains. What follows goes even deeper. Furthermore, confront what remains and prepare for the moment when the collapse of the enemy's strategies becomes inevitable. Obvious. Now we enter part 3, and this is the point where the spiritual confrontation becomes direct. If in the previous parts there was preparation, discernment, and withdrawal of permissions, something decisive happens here. What was still resisting begins to give way, no by human strength, not by emotion, but by alignment with God's justice. Stay alert, not rushed, just alert. There is a truth that few understand. When God begins to act as judge, the atmosphere changes before the facts change. The feeling internally, things stabilize, confusion decreases, and fear loses its voice. And that's exactly what you may be perceiving right now. Perhaps you feel a greater seriousness at this moment, perhaps a different kind of stillness, perhaps a firmness that didn't come from you. That's a sign that authority is being repositioned. Now we're entering directly into the block. What happens in the spiritual world when God rises up with Psalms 35 and 94? Psalm 35 calls on God to fight against those who fight against you. Psalm 94 reveals God as judge who observes, records, and attributes the evil to the one who practices it. When these two psalms when activated together, something very specific happens. Hidden strategies lose their effectiveness. In the spiritual world, nothing is sustained by intention alone. Everything needs permission, agreement, or ignorance. And here, neither of those things remains active. Perhaps now you are remembering situations in which you were treated unfairly, words that you didn't. You could respond, silent accusations, attitudes that hurt you without explanation. That's not coming to the surface to hurt you again. It's leaving to close properly. Now I'm aware of myself. I close all unresolved injustice. I close all unfounded accusations. Cause. I close off all attempts at spiritual attrition. These statements, they're not catharsis, they're acts of closure. Now let's delve even deeper into the confrontation. There's a type of an enemy that does not present itself with direct confrontation. It operates in silence, in repetition, in the wear and tear. It feeds on time. And it is exactly this kind of the operation described in Psalm 94. The text says that they think what God doesn't see, but He sees. And when He decides to act, time works for the righteous. Perhaps you have lived through long periods of waiting, too long, and that generated doubt, weariness, even the urge to give up. But understand now, time. What seemed lost was actually a time for the accumulation of justice. Now we enter the block of stronger guided statements as defined in our structure. Repeat after me calmly and inner strength. I no longer accept unfair attacks. I no longer accept being worn down, silent. I no longer accept words thrown against me. Now for something deeper. I hereby withdraw all spiritual permission for any contrary work. I now withdraw all spiritual permission for any evil influence. I now withdraw all permission, spiritual weight against any intention of harm. These words carry spiritual weight because the permission has been withdrawn. Close the access. Now let's get into something extremely important, the breaking of old emotional agreements. Often without realizing it, the person creates agreements such as, it's better to remain silent. If I defend myself, it'll only get worse. It's best not to bring that up. These agreements keep the attack going. Today, they are broken. You agree with me. I break all agreements with the silence is harming me. I break all agreements with omission out of fear. I choose to trust that God will help me. Defends. Now something liberating. I don't need to fight in that way. Wrong. Rest while God works. This completely changes the spiritual scenario. Now let's enter a sensitive but necessary point. The enemies fall today. This does not mean physical destruction, human vengeance, or malicious intent. It means downfall of influence, of power, of spiritual authority. It means that whoever tried it loses its ability to continue working against you. And this happens because God does not allow sustained injustice forever. Perhaps you're noticing that certain people no longer have the same effect on you. Words that once would now sounds empty. Attempts at provocation lose their impact. That's a sign of declining influence. Now let's delve even deeper into what's happening in the spiritual world in this moment. While you remain vigilant, the hidden strategies collapse. What was planned in darkness loses coherence. What was sustained by lies loses strength. What was fueled by envy, it dissolves. And something important happens. Energy returns to you. Not mystical energy, but clarity, focus, presence. You feel whole again. Now I need you to understand something fundamental. When God enters as judge, he no longer, you need to justify yourself. The defense isn't yours, the answer isn't yours, the explanation isn't yours, it's yours. And that takes a huge weight off your shoulders. Agree with me now. Not anymore. I justify myself. I trust that God will clarify things. I remain at peace. These statements bring to a close a deep cycle of emotional strain. Now let's move on to an essential section of this is part 3. Clear signs that the fall has begun. One sign is when you start receiving unexpected news, information that appears without warning. You seek revelations that happen naturally. This is not a coincidence. It's gradual exposure. Another sign is when people who used to attack you start to distance themselves, not because it's not a fight, but a loss of access. That's a drop in influence. Another sign is when you begin to feel peace where there was previously tension. That shows that the spiritual atmosphere has changed. Now let's delve into something very profound. Rest as a spiritual weapon. Few people understand this, but resting while God works is an act of advanced faith. The enemy expects a reaction. When he doesn't find one, he loses strength. Perhaps I'm feeling like simplifying, talking less, to observe more. That is wisdom being activated. Now let's enter into the prayer of guided confrontation, not yet the final prayer. This is a prayer of positioning. Take a deep breath. Lord God Almighty, I acknowledge that there was injustice, there were attacks, there were words and intentions raised against me, but today I declare that I no longer carry that burden. I surrender to you every cause that I couldn't resolve it. I'm handing you every unanswered accusation. I'm handing you all. This is not my fight. Fight for me, Lord. Fight for me. Establish your will, justice. It dismantles hidden strategies. It exposes what needs to be exposed. It closes whatever needs to be closed. I trust you. Very well. Now let's go back into the listener's statements grew even stronger. Repeat after me. I am protected by God's justice. I am protected. I remain unafraid. Now something powerful. What rose up against me falls. What tried to reach me, it loses its power. What was done in secret is undone. These words do not, they are aggressive. They are assertions of spiritual authority. Now notice something important. Many times after the fall begins, the temptation arises to argue again, to test, to confront. Don't fall into that trap. God doesn't need your interference to finish what he started. Now, before we move on to the part 4, I need to prepare you. In part 4, we will do the definitive sealing. We will state Psalms 35 and 94 in form strategic. We will seal mind, heart, home, and paths and completely close any possibility of a comeback attack. That's when the cycle is complete. But before that, do a simple act now if you can. Write in the comments, God does justice for me today. Or simply, the Lord's justice prevails. You are not in the midst of chaos. You are in the midst of the restoration of order. It remains. What follows seals all that was broken and establishes a new time of peace, protection, and clarity. Stay with me until the end, because now we enter the most delicate and most powerful moment of the entire process. Everything that was prepared in the previous sections converge at this point. Nothing new begins here. Here it is. Here it is established. Here that which is definitively closed is closed. He tried to remain active against your life. There is a profound spiritual difference between breaking something and to seal something. To break interrupts. To seal prevents return. And this is exactly it, the purpose of this part 4. You may notice that the indoor environment is different. Less noise, less urgency, less anxiety. This happens because when God's justice prevails, it is complete. The soul finds rest. It is not a superficial relief, it is spiritual stability. Now pay attention with all your spirit. Psalms 35 and 94 are not just texts of confrontation, are texts of governance. When these psalms are declared with understanding, God does not act only as a warrior. He acts as judge, lawgiver, and defender. And when God rules, there is no room for opposing interference. Now consciously say with me, I accept God's rule over my life. I accept the Lord's justice. That's enough. I'm ending this cycle of attack. These words are crucial. They close emotional and spiritual gaps. Now we enter the sealing of the 4 levels, something we define as essential in our standard structure. First, sealing the mind. Many attacks don't continue because the enemy has strength, but because the mind remains open to fear, to memory, to negative anticipation. That's now closed. Repeat after me. My mind is sealed. For the peace of God. Thoughts of fear do not remain. The memories that fueled the pain are losing their power. Now something deeper is emerging. I will not revisit what God has already judged. This statement closes a cycle of mental rumination. Second, sealing of the heart. The heart bears marks, some invisible, some are old, some are linked to unresolved injustices. Today, those brands no longer rule. He declares, my heart is sealed. I no longer act from that place of influence. I act from truth despite the pain. Now, something essential. I release forgiveness without carrying any burden. This doesn't absolve anyone of their wrongdoing. It removes the right of permanence of pain. Third, sealing the house. The house is not just walls, it is atmosphere, it is rest, it is a place of refuge. And every home needs to be spiritually aligned. Declare with me, my home is a place of peace. My home is territory saved. No contrary influence remains. Now say firmly, everything who tried to enter without permission leaves. At this moment, spiritually, the environment is reorganized. Fourth, sealing of the roads. Many attacks occur in the movement, decisions, choices, opportunities, encounters. Here, God establishes protection along the way. He declares, my paths are guarded, my decisions are enlightened. I don't stumble into traps, hidden. Now something powerful. What God opens, no one can close. What God closing doesn't bind me. This closes future interference. Now we enter. In the final sealing prayer aligned with Psalms 35 and 94, but without mechanical repetition, understanding. Take a deep breath. Lord God, I place myself before you. I look to you with awareness, not as someone crying out for help, but as someone trusting in your government. You saw what was done in secret. You heard what was said in silence. You know every intention, every word, every attempt. Today I declare that I no longer carry any of those burdens. I surrender to you all judgment, all answers, all consequently. May your justice be complete. May your truth prevail. May the opposing force lose strength, access, and continuity. Defend me, Lord, as you promised. Fight for me like you said. Make him fall. The weight of their own injustice falls upon the unjust, not out of revenge, but because correction and closure. And keep me in peace. Very well. Now we enter the moment for the listener's final statements, which are extremely important. Repeat after me with calm firmness. I am at peace. I am safe. I remain unafraid. Now, something decisive. There is no more access against me. There is no more gaps. There is no more continuity. These words seal the cycle. Now I need you to understand something profound. God's justice doesn't need to be accompanied by noise. Many times it manifests itself in silence. People drift away, situations dissolve, the problem simply ceases to exist. You may notice in the coming days that things that they used to affect you, but now they have no impact. This isn't indifference, it's freedom. Now let's talk about the signs after sealing so you can recognize them and not be surprised. A common sign is the desire to reorganize life, to put things in order, closing loose ends, simplifying routines. This reflects spiritual order, restored. Another sign is emotional clarity. You begin to perceive what is valuable and what is not. Your energy is worthless. This is spiritual maturity. Another sign. It's the peace without explanation, even without everything being resolved externally. Internally, there is peace. This is restored confidence. Now, something important. I'm not going back to the old ways. Don't go back to watching the enemy. Stop trying to analyze everything the enemy did. Stop replaying the injustice in your mind. Stop attempting to justify yourself to people who were never positioned to understand your battle. God does not need your constant vigilance. He does not need your anxiety. He does not need you standing guard over something he has already judged. What he requires now is your trust. Say it consciously, I trust you, Lord. Not because you understand every detail, not because you saw everything clearly, but because you know who fights for you. Now pay attention, because this is the closing of this entire spiritual journey. This is not just the end of a message. This is the sealing of a cycle. The cycle of attack ends here. The cycle of silent erosion ends here. The cycle of repeated injustice ends here. The cycle of being drained without explanation ends here. From this point forward, what is established over your life is peace, clarity, protection, and forward progress. Not because challenges will disappear, but because nothing will be allowed to weaken you unfairly anymore. Nothing will be permitted to secretly sabotage what God is building. Psalm 35 fulfilled its assignment. God contended with those who contended with you. Psalm 94 fulfilled its judgment. Heaven responded to hidden injustice. God rose as defender. Justice was activated. What needed to fall has fallen. What needed to be shut down has been shut down. What needed to be exposed has been exposed in the spiritual realm, even if your natural eyes have not yet seen the full manifestation. And here is what matters now. You are not leaving this moment the same way you entered it. Something has been closed. Something has been legally sealed. Something that was operating against you has lost authorization. You do not need to fight the same battle tomorrow. You do not need to carry the same emotional weight. You do not need to stay in defensive mode. The verdict has already been issued. Now, if this word resonates with your spirit, write in the comments, "The justice of God has prevailed in my life." Or simply write, "I am at peace." This is not empty interaction. It is alignment. It is agreement with what heaven has declared. Receive this final covering. May the peace of the Lord guard your mind against future anxiety. May the truth of God silence every lingering doubt. May his hand guide your steps in the days ahead. May no evil prosper against you. May no negative word gain authority over your destiny. May your home remain under divine rest. May your path be cleared of hidden resistance. You started this message under pressure. You end it under protection. You started seeking answers. You end it carrying authority. You started in tension. You end in established peace. Move forward now, protected, guarded, backed by divine justice. And before you leave, subscribe to Prophecy of the Psalm so you remain connected to these prayers and declarations. Turn on notifications, because what God begins, he continues. And do not forget to declare in the comments, "The justice of God has prevailed." The cycle is closed, the verdict is sealed, and you move forward under God's perfect justice. Amen.